I can, but it like it's fucking soft a lot of the time.
You know Rogers has or something like that. Yeah.
That one's pretty new. It's like,
well, I guess they just came out with a new one.
It's free.
Like Alsa or something. Battleground or something.
I'll have to check into that.
Yeah, we should too. When it's stronger and faster.
See my aunt from Calgary, she's pretty cool today at the supper. That's why my mom had the big supper, because my aunt was down. She's traveling all around Canada, visiting all family and going to all the special Canadian places and blah, 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 doing just a huge trip around Canada, like all kinds of
feels like it?
She was like in my family. I remember when I was really young, I seen her on TV for like a political debate thing. My mom showed me. It was my aunt, like kicking ass and stuff. My dad's sister, yeah. And my aunt Kathy, and she married a guy named Doug too, so he's like my uncle Doug. Really tall guy too. Fucking almost, I think he is taller than me. He's pretty cool. I talked to him today. Fucking, he was in a fucking avalanche in BC, like fucking buried, like under like fucking countless. He said a couple meters of snow or something, whatever that is. And fucking, yeah. And he apparently like he was really close to death too. And, like they found him with a transponder. He said everybody that goes up in the mountains hiking, they have to have this electric transponder that they find him inside. I'm like, how the hell did they find you? Like they could take poles and like just poke them through the snow, which is what they used to do. Like, you know, jab in the snow. But, you know, he's like, no, they use transponders and stuff.
So he's digging all right away type thing?
Yeah, apparently.
So could he breathe out of the snow?
He said it was like being covered in concrete, is what he said.
So how could he breathe?
He passed out, he didn't. Like, he fucking, his body just like shut right down.
How long was he under there?
Yeah, I don't think he knows. He didn't really know.
Really?
Yeah.
So he was just passed out, not breathing, fucking pretty much dead for like hours or something?
I don't think hours, no. Because when the avalanche happened, I mean, like, people were pretty much on top of it. Like, I think there was like 5 or 6 people under that got down under at BC and shit. It was like a for real thing. It was pretty crazy.
How long was that?
It was last year, I think.
Oh, so it's fucking recent.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. He's like my uncle that's like an adventurist.
Got a couple of years or something. Years.
I don't have any. You live on mine.
I got a bunch, yeah. Well, 15. Was this Dan X on here because we looked it up on your TV?
For the what?
This.
The what?
All this workout shit.
Yeah, that's no. I subscribed to it a long time ago when you showed me. Oh no, is that the new one?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, because they're connected. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same YouTube account. I was actually checking a bunch of that stuff out like today.
What's is that next thing?
Yeah, just
crazy shit.
Yeah. I still say when he's older, he won't be able to do that as much. Being as young as he is, it fucking helps. It helps out a lot.
Train your body to do it.
I know, but fuck, you're fucking 40, 50, 60. You ain't gonna do shit like that, man. I don't know. I'm sure there might be some that could, but fuck.
Bigfoot in China document. Yeah. What are we on the side door?
The side's locked.
Shoes
Hello? Hello?
I remember. I think it's a truck. I'm just looking for the Tylenol.
Oh. You know the toilet down here fixed itself?
Whatever.
Oh, okay. Love you,
How
bye.
did it fix itself?
I don't know. I just went in there and it was perfectly clear water and I could flush it and it worked perfectly. I have no clue how.
Maybe you can like scrub that toilet down.
It's clear and clean.
The toilet is dirty.
Okay, fine. I'll scrub it.
Yeah. I'm just steam cleaning the couch.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you, bye.
Love you guys, college.
Better than walking up and down, I'll tell you that much. I hear you yelling at the top of the stairs. I can't hear half the shit.
It's never nice to be yelled at me on top of the stairs.
Oh, buddy. That's funny you say that. Cause yeah, my mom did it, your mom did it. I know.
With the soundproof basement, if she yelled at me, I'd just sit there and listen and pretend like I didn't hear it. Because I knew she wasn't coming down the stairs.
Looking hilarious.
This video is sponsored by Tiger. Your promo code is in the description.
You can turn it up on the stereo too.
Unfortunately, in this
Make the
information
bottom up.
age in which we live, there are still large portions of the population that are unaware that what they're actually watching on today's corporate media channels is nothing more than fabricated, bias-filled, government-influenced propaganda that is designed to increase ratings, mold the minds of viewers, and steer public opinion. And this is no exaggeration. These for-profit channels do not increase the already saturated coffers of elite industry tightened by broadcasting truth. On the contrary, their mountains of money and power rise to new heights through the propagation of falsehood. Falsehoods that are backed by generous donations of government sponsors, foreign and domestic government. This is Amber Ryan, three-time Emmy-award-winning journalist and former CNN correspondent and whistleblower who says authoritarian regimes, including Bahrain, pay the news network to provide favorable coverage and censored content. She says CNN is routinely paid by the U.S. government and foreign governments to selectively report on certain events and make up fake news stories. You gotta hand it to her. When she shines the light of truth on what's really going on behind the scenes of these news, she's putting a lot on it. She's bravely defying threats from her former employer, a powerful, influential media giant, to speak out about self-censorship and false journalism at the network. But CNN's threats have the opposite effect. Lying insists she never signed any confidentiality or non-disclosure agreement with CNN, but she has a positive and refreshing outlook about any risk to her severance package or even to her life. She said, quote, "At this point, I look at those payments as dirty money to stay silent. I got into journalism to expose, not to help conceal wrongdoing. And I'm not willing to keep quiet about this any longer, even if it means I'll lose those payments." And what do you think would happen to the face of today's media empire if a large percentage of reporters in many situations
I know, I've heard about that. I've seen that. I've seen the clip of it.
do exactly what Amber did. So here's Amber Ryan. Listen closely to what she says. Share this video with people who still believe that today's mainstream media is presenting honest journalism to the general public, and leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And just keep in mind as you watch this, as you've seen from many videos on YouTube, including my own, this is just a very small tip of an enormous iceberg of lies.
Oh yeah, big
to sneak into some of the villages and actually see these atrocities. Patients who've run out of the hospitals, that were shot up with bird shot, ambulance drivers who were beaten. And as we were heading back out of these villages, we were violently detained by security forces in Bahrain, about 20 masked men with machine guns, who then tried to erase all the video that they found. And luckily, my female producer and I were able to hide some discs in our bras, and we were able to actually get out of the country with this content. So you can imagine Bahrain's surprise when we got back to the US and this content was airing on CNN. And right after that is when the phone calls started coming into the network complaining about me. Bahrain is paying CNN to create content that shows Bahrain in a favorable light, even though CNN says this content, you know, is editorially independent. It doesn't. Bahrain can't affect that. Well, we've seen that with this documentary not airing, and also with the constant struggle I had at CNN to get Bahrain coverage, accurate Bahrain coverage of the human rights abuses on air while I was there. What CNN is doing is they're essentially creating what some people have termed infomercials for dictators. And that's the sponsored content that they're airing on CNN International that's actually being paid for by regimes and governments. I mean, this violates every principle of journalistic ethics, because we're supposed to be watchdogs on these governments. We're not supposed to allow them to be paying customers as journalists.
Guys, thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and share it on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to see more videos like this, click that big red subscribe button down there, and as soon as I upload a video, you'll be one of the first to see it. If you want to support this channel, now for some health news. You know the old expression, don't worry, be happy?
Don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry, be happy.
I've seen them do that. They do that with a lot of other phrases too.
Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry.
All the media.
Don't
all
worry,
the ones.
be happy.
Don't worry, 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 be happy. Don't worry.
It's all at the same time too, around the same time.
Script top 10 stage media.
Ashley Banfield from a parking lot in Phoenix, reporting via satellite with Nancy Grace, who seemed to be in the same parking lot in Phoenix. I'm basing that, of course, on the fact that the cars that are passing by Ashley Banfield's location box also appear to be passing directly into Nancy Grace's box.
That's so funny.
In consumer news, economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny step this year.
Yeah, that's what I seen. That one.
After faking a news conference, instead of facing the usual grilling from journalists, the Emergency Management Agency had its own employees, you see them sitting down right there, pretend to be reporters and ask the questions. Well, now the White House is responding.
It is not a practice that we employ here at the White House. We certainly don't condone it. We didn't know about it beforehand. FEMA has issued an apology and saying that they had an error in judgment when they were attempting to try to get out a lot of information to reporters who are asking for answers to a variety of questions in regards to the wildfires in California. It's not something I would have condoned, and I'm sure we'll not do it again.
Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end of email overload?
Could this be the end?
We're going now to Saudi Arabia and Charles Jaco. Charles, are you still hearing me? Charles Jaco,
the air raid sirens are just now going off here near these U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia. We've sent the entire camera crews inside right now. We're all preparing to put on our gas masks, as we've been told. There are sounds of planes overhead. We don't know whose planes there are, but air raid sirens are going off insistently. There are military convoys on both sides of me. We're being told to get off this platform and get inside into the air raid shelter immediately. But right now, everyone's been training for this, and it looks like we may have...
All right, Charles Jaco, that doesn't mean that he is in any imminent danger. Of course, we can't know that.
CD, if you need to take cover, I notice that you've got your gas mask in your hands. If you need to put it on, please do so. If you need to take cover.
People are looking up in the sky, scanning the skies to see what they can see. We're about to have a short course in missile identification. This is a Scud. You can tell it by its distinctive label. Now, when the missile is launched, the first thing you look for is the plume sticking out behind it. Now, when you detect this, you can tell it's been launched. Thank you. Larry King Show or bust. Je suis journaliste américain. Woof. Woof. Oh, I love this country so much. Well, Cheryl, it was almost exactly 2 hours ago when the sirens went off here in Saudi Arabia. Where we are in Eastern Saudi Arabia, there was no problem. Let me just size my mask and put it for a second just to like how it is. All clear. Are they saying all clear? Were they saying all clear down there? All clear at Fabienne with a false alarm. Got that, Atlanta? Standing down now. I'm gonna go get my hamburger and my coffee.
Oh my God! This is not the clearest game one. It looked like it though.
Every time I order something, this happens. All clear. Thank you.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
Congress. This is Congress. Congress video.
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
U.S. President George Herbert Walker Bush pushes for a land war against Iraq. But polls show the U.S. public is split 50-50 on that idea. Then comes this eyewitness testimony before a congressional committee from a 15-year-old Kuwaiti girl. The claim is she cannot be identified for fear of reprisals.
While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers coming to the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of incubators.
So fake.
Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
The U.S. public is outraged. The result? Support for land war zooms. It's a turning point. Desert Storm is launched. 135,000 Iraqis are killed. An estimated 1 million Iraqis, many of them children and old people, then die as a result of 10 years of sanctions. One small problem. There never were any incubator baby deaths. Not one. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's investigative flagship program, The Fifth Estate, reveals the girl to be the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter, given her lines and coached and acted by the giant American PR firm Hill & Knowlton. It's one phase in a $10 million joint U.S.-Kuwaiti campaign of deception. This man is lying.
I myself buried 14 newborn babies that had been taken from their incubators.
This man is lying.
And they had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
There were a lot of people who participated in a conspiracy. Yes, an out-and-out conspiracy of fake organizations, false documents, fraud, and disinformation.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
I'm Ray McGovern, a 27-year veteran of the Central Intelligence Agency. Why did you lie to get us into a war that was not necessary and that has caused these kinds of casualties?
Retro.
First of all, I haven't lied.
Oh, he didn't lie. All right, well, that settles it, everybody. There's pound cake in the back. We can all have a nice time, and,
It appears that there were not weapons of mass destruction there.
You said you knew where they were.
I did not.
See? He never said he knew where they were. We know where they are. They're in the area around Tikrit and Baghdad and east, west, south, and north somewhat.
So the Secretary of Defense caught in a contradiction about weapons of mass destruction. Surely that will be a big...
How much of an axe do you have to grind with Secretary Rumsfeld?
But he wasn't just any heckler.
Were you nervous? Tucker, I resent the word heckler. I'd like you to take that back.
Okay, I'm not taking it back.
Rumsfeld encouraged whoever, I think, had their hands on you at the time to let you say there. Does he get any credit for that?
What is it you liar to? Well, that's the question you have to direct to him.
This kind of stuff makes all you Americans look like
right after 9/11, people were asked about Iraq, and only about 16% felt Saddam Hussein had anything to do with it. But with all of this propaganda coming out, change
never checked. I'm sure I do.
About 28% believe that Iraq had something to do with it. 2 years after we invaded Iraq, close to 60%, 56% of Americans believe a delusion.
What did Iraq have to do with what? The attack on the World Trade Center. Nothing.
There are 5 giant multinational corporations who control all 14,000, virtually all 14,000 radio stations in America, all 5,000 television stations, 80% of our newspapers, all of our billboards, and most of the large internet content providers. So there are 5 guys who are deciding what we hear as news and information.
Iraq continues to fire community of nations,
which must be
presents a challenge which must be addressed. It is inherently dangerous
to allow a country such as
Iraq to retain weapons of mass destruction, particularly in the light of its past aggressive behavior.
If the world
the exact same states, we feel encouraged that other rogue states
Whitney Houston died in a swimming pool. She had more than twice as much coverage on primetime TV than 250,000 people who died in Haiti. Lance Armstrong was involved in a doping scandal. Almost 3 times more attention than we gave to the death of 250,000 people in Haiti. So 3 years after the Haiti quake, there are 378,000 Haitians who are still living in tents. Our Wolf Blitzer is not covering that story. Okay? He's busy trying to entertain us.
So now with Pelé dropping out, Rick Perry dropping in, and Michelle Bachmann and Ron Paul dominating the straw poll, we got ourselves a race.
We have a top tier. It is Mitt Romney, Rick Perry, and Michelle Bachmann.
We have a new top tier, and it's Perry, Mitt Romney, and Bachmann. There's now a top tier in this race, at least for now, of Romney, Perry, and Bachmann.
I think that's fair to say. Really fair to say? You're not forgetting, I don't know, anyone, say, an ideologically consistent 12-term congressman who came within less than 200 votes of winning the straw poll? Isn't anyone going to give that gentleman a vote?
There's a top tier now of Bachmann and Perry and Romney, and, we haven't mentioned, and we should.
Thank you.
We haven't mentioned, and we should, Rick Santorum, who did really surprisingly well for the amount of money and resources he had.
Rick Santorum, he didn't get half of what Ron Paul got. He lost to the guy who lost so bad he dropped out of the race.
Oh my God, dude. The rhino's chasing me. He's pissed.
We're looking at Mitt Romney, who continues to be...
Oh, he's got my gun.
Rick Perry is well, and
leave him alone. Leave him alone.
John Huntsman? Huntsman got 69 If John Huntsman's supporters met the same age Iowa quiz zones, the fire marshal would say, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. The safety table's open in the back. Huntsman was the only Mormon running in the straw poll, and he came in second amongst Mormons. This pretending doesn't exist for some reason has been going on for weeks.
A new Gallup survey showing Rick Perry running second to to Mitt Romney, knocking down Iowa favorite Michelle Bachmann to 4th.
Behind who? Behind who? How did Libertarian Ron Paul become the 13th floor in a hotel? What's wrong with he's Tea Party patient zero? Small government grassroots business, he planted that grass. These other folks, they're just moral majorities in a tricorner hat. Ron Paul, the real deal. And Fox News should love this guy.
Look at that. Look at time he's fighting. Look at that.
In the debate audience. Nuclear weapons, and we have to believe it. I'm sure you supported that war as well. It's time we quit this. It's time. It's trillions of dollars. What's with the smirk and the eye roll? I gotta give the crowd goes nuts when you do one of these. There goes crazy Uncle Ron, babbling about the unsustainability of multiple wars. He's the one guy in the field, agree with him or not, agree with him, who doesn't go out of his way to regurgitate talking points or change what he believes to fit the audience he's in front of. And you're treating him like if this were Celebrity Apprentice, he'd be this guy. By the way, at the Ames, Iowa straw poll, Busey beat Huntsman 77-69. The media does remember Ron Paul. It's only to reassure themselves how there's no need to remember Ron Paul.
Right now, Ron, right next to the bus behind us, Ron Paul is strong. And 7 of the candidates are here today. We have live pictures of Ron Paul, but you know what? We're talking about Sarah Palin, we're talking about Rick Perry. These are people not in the race yet.
Guess what, Paul? If you get video of Sarah Palin or get a soundbite from her, bring that back to us. You can love the Ron Paul stuff.
Your administration continues to make the use of video news networks as a prepackaged news story. Says the television station is fully aware that some or many of these stations will air them without any disclaimer that they are produced by the government. Controllers General of the United States this week said that raises ethical questions. Does it raise ethical questions about the use of government money to produce stories about the government that might be aired with no disclosure that they were produced by the government?
There's a Justice Department opinion that says these pieces are within the law so long as they're based upon facts, not advocacy.
Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. The details are very, very sketchy. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and behind that is an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline 1500 years ago.
Really?
The collapse of World Trade Center 7 on 9/11 was a rare event.
Yeah.
Our study has identified thermal expansion as a new phenomenon that can cause the collapse of the structure.
Hey, whoever's watching, skim that water. Golly, I think it's a good thing.
I scream, you scream, you know the rest.
I scream, you scream. I scream, you scream. You know the rest.
We received an order from one of Murdoch's apparatchiks, if you will, that we should cut away from our newscast and start carrying a fawning tribute to Ronald Reagan that was airing at the Republican convention. We were stunned because up until that point we were allowed to do legitimate news, and suddenly we were ordered from the top to carry propaganda, carry Republican right-wing propaganda.
The U.S. State Department calls him one of the most significant financial sponsors of Islamic extremism in the world.
Supposedly, a CNN reporter found Osama bin Laden television camera crew with him.
He's a major terrorist
went into Osama bin Laden's hideout.
Without putting a minivan with curtained windows and driveways.
As night falls, we move to a four-wheel drive vehicle that makes its way up a rough mountain path, past checkpoints manned by heavily armed men. Interviewed him and his top leadership, his top lieutenants and colonels, generals, in their hideout.
Mr. bin Laden, you have declared a jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
The U.S. government has committed acts that are extremely unjust, hideous, and criminal through its support of the Israeli occupation of Palestine. And we believe the U.S. is directly responsible for those killed in Palestine, Lebanon, and Iraq.
This is a CNN reporter with a camera crew. And he came out and told everybody, within 3 weeks, Osama bin Laden is going to attack the United States and Israel. Now, don't you think that's kind of strange, folks? You see, because the largest intelligence apparatus in the world, with the biggest budget in the history of the world, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years, and can't find him. Some doofus, jerk-off reporter with a camera crew waltzes right into his hideout and interviews him. Now, that tells us two things. Either everyone in the intelligence community and all of the intelligence agencies of the United States government are slithering idiots and incompetent fools, including the entire apparatus of the FBI and all of their personnel, or they're lying to us. They're not looking for him at all.
I suspect your research has discovered the memoranda written by John Moody and by Roger in terms of setting the tone for the day. The message of the day is a very political device.
Let's spend a good deal of time on the battle over judicial nominations, which the President will address this morning. Nominees who both sides admit are qualified are being held up because of their past, not demonstrating views on one issue proportion. This should be a trademark issue for FNC today and in the days to come.
There was nothing covert about the way the managing editors in New York or Washington operated. They made it perfectly clear what they expected from us.
The so-called 9/11 Commission has already been meeting. This is not what did he know and when did he know it stuff. Do not turn this into Watergate.
Every morning, there was a detailed list of subjects to talk about and not talk about.
Kerry's speech on the economy at Georgetown is likely to move onto the topic of Iraq. We should take the beginning of the Kerry speech and see if other news at the time is more compelling. It is not required to take it start to finish.
They were just actually pushing English to the reporters to control what they could say and how they could say it.
Let's refer to the U.S. Marines we see in the foreground as sharpshooters, not snipers, which carries a negative connotation.
When headquarters sent a memo every morning and said, we want to touch on the following issues, we want to cover the following stories, we want to do them in this particular way, our job and our objective then was to execute the plan.
The pictures from Abu Ghraib prison are disturbing. Today was just aired on Al Arabiya of an American being held with a scarf over his eyes, clearly against his will, who's outraged on his behalf. So here's just a segment of stuff that will never appear on America.
Watching this and
Pakistan se duši.
there are 100,000 stories like that simply do not get into our consciousness. And so we are kind of immune from having to deal with the consequences of our collective behavior.
The documentary that we just saw a clip of never aired. It never aired on CNN International. Why not? Well, I still haven't been given an exact reason as to why it didn't air. I went and visited with the president of CNN International, Tony twice, on behalf of my dumbfounded crew, and we were never given an answer. And so I started investigating the situation. Was after several employees who'd been at the network for years approached me and said, you need to look into this, there's something going on. It's very strange, they're not airing your documentary. And after some investigation, we found out that CNN International is actually making money from the Bahrain regime. They are a customer of Bahrain. Bahrain is paying CNN International to create content that shows Bahrain in a favorable light, and it's ultimately to create that content with, to then air that content on CNN International. And one of the shows, it was called I Was Bahrain. It was back in 2010. It was sponsored by Bahrain, and Richard Press was live from the country for a week, talking about the Formula One race and how progressive Bahrain was and how the Crown Prince was a reformer. Well, we saw in February 2011 that under the Crown Prince's rule, the military troops shot and killed unarmed protesters in broad daylight. And this is very dangerous because what CNN is doing, and they're not only taking money from just Bahrain, they've also produced similar content for Georgia, Kazakhstan, and other nations as well, Lebanon. And what makes this dangerous is they're not disclosing to the viewers that these sponsored programs are actually being sponsored. Or if they are disclosing it, it's in very small gray lettering at the bottom of the article.
Making this stuffy junk nowhere. We always suspected. Hoaxes of all time. Number 10. The Howard Hughes. In the 1920s, the world industrialist Howard Hughes was one of the richest men in the world, but mental illness led to his becoming a total recluse, and by the 1950s he had entirely retired from public life. In 1970, struggling writer Clifford Irving and a friend hatched a plan to write a fake autobiography of the famed aviator and film producer, figuring that Hughes wouldn't want to draw attention to himself by condemning it as a fake. Irving forged letters in Hughes' hands, made up interviews and stories, and eventually managed to get a contract with a well-known publishing company with an autobiography of Hughes. Irving became a minor celebrity when the book was released, appearing on 60 Minutes and other television shows to discuss his supposed relationship with Hughes. He was finally found out when the real Howard Hughes called a press conference and denied ever knowing him. Irving and his accomplice eventually spent some time in prison for the stunt, which remains one of the biggest literary hoaxes of all time. Number 9. Idaho's name. If the story behind it is indeed true, then the Idaho hoax remains one of the most successful pranks of all time. The story dates back to the 1860s when new territory was being mapped out in the western United States. Industrialist George Willing suggested Idaho as a name for the new state, claiming that it meant the sun comes from the mountains, in the Native American language. The name gained some popularity in the area, and in 1863 the region was named Idaho Territory, which would later become the state of Idaho. It was only then that Willing, a known eccentric, admitted that Idaho wasn't a Native American word at all, and claimed that he simply made it up. Although historians still argue about whether or not Willing is really responsible for helping name the state of Idaho, his claim that it was an Indian word was widely reported, and it falsely appeared in history books well into the 20th century. Number 8. The Hitler Diaries.
The Hitler Diaries were a collection of documents penned by master forger Konrad Kajau and passed off as the personal journals of Adolf Hitler. The scammers claimed that after being recovered from the wreckage of the plane that crashed in Germany in 1945, the diaries were smuggled out of East Germany by a man named Inspector Fischer. They were eventually bought for 10 million German marks by the magazine Stern, which published extracts from one of its issues in 1983. But the extreme amount of secrecy required to keep the story exclusive meant that historians and handwriting experts weren't able to properly examine the diaries and confirm their authenticity, and it was only after the article was published that they were revealed to be fakes. The insolent scandal resulted in several of the magazine's editors resigning, and Kajau and the journalist he was working with both spent time in prison. Number 7. Paul is Dead. The superstardom gained by the Beatles in the late 1960s helped produce the Paul is Dead hoax, which still remains one of the biggest legends in music. It started when some fans began to claim that hidden messages stating Paul McCartney was dead could be heard when certain Beatles songs were played backwards. The rumour gained steam with the help of radio disc jockeys and conspiracy theorists, and a legend arose that McCartney had died in a car accident during the recording of one of the band's albums, with some even claiming that Paul had been replaced by a lookalike. McCartney was eventually forced to address the rumour and wanted to confirm that he was not, in fact, dead. But just who started the hoax rumours remains a mystery. Many have put forth the Beatles themselves as possible suspects, pointing to the frequent cryptic messages and word-carrying found on their albums, but the band repeatedly denied this claim. Number 6. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is one of the biggest literary forgeries of all time, and since it appeared over 100 years ago, its effects have been unbelievably far-reaching. The book, which was deliberately forged by Russian journalist Matvey Golovinsky sometime around 1900, purports to describe the secrets of a clandestine group of Jews known as the Elders of Zion. Mixing outright fabrication with plagiarism from other sources, it details a Jewish conspiracy to achieve world domination through brainwashing, governmental power, and violence. Even though it was proven as a forgery both in the media and the court of law as early as 1938, it has been used time and again as justification for anti-Semitism, most notably by the Nazis, and has helped inspire untold amounts of violence. At this point, the book has lost almost all credibility in academic circles, but it continues to have an influence, most famously in Middle Eastern nations like Egypt and Iran. Number 5. The Turk. Built by Wolfgang von Kempelen in 1770, the Turk was a fake automaton chess player that gained fame in the courts of Europe and was exhibited around the world for more than 80 years. Conceived by Kempelen in order to impress the Empress Maria Theresa, the Turk was purported to be a chess-playing machine that worked by a series of mechanical cogs and cranks, but in reality it was an illusion that allowed a human chess master to hide inside a compartment and operate the pieces using
DraftKings Street.
If you've ever seen a presidential motorcade or a live shot of the White House grounds, then odds are you've seen more than a few men and women in black suits walking around. There's also a good chance you missed a few hidden in the crowds or in the background. These serious-looking individuals belong to the U.S. Secret Service. Among many tasks, their best-known priority involves protecting the President of the United States. Yet there's a few facts that aren't so widely known, and we have them here for you. Naturally, all these secrets about the Secret Service come at a price, and that price is our quiz, which will be asked during the video. Answer it correctly, and you can be sure no men in black will be visiting your door tonight. Before we start, be sure to have your security clearance and click that red subscribe button. Also be sure to activate those notifications so you never miss out on our latest and greatest videos. Original purpose. In a bit of an ironic twist, the Secret Service was created on April 14, 1865. It's the very same day President Lincoln decided it was a good time to head over to Ford's Theater to take in a show. We all know what happened next. However, even if the ill-fated Lincoln had created the Secret Service days or months earlier, it's highly unlikely it would have changed anything as far as he was concerned. Why? Well, it turns out the agency wasn't created with the protection of the president in mind. You see, in the 1800s, the United States had a serious problem with counterfeiting.
It is estimated that at the time Lincoln signed the Secret Service into existence, 1/3 of U.S. money was paid. At the urging of the Treasury Department, the Secret Service of the Department of Treasury was created. For the next 35 years, these agents tracked down counterfeiters and invested financial crimes, all while presidents dropped like flies. Finally, after the assassination of William McKinley in 1901, it was decided that the Secret Service should start looking after the president, beginning with Theodore Roosevelt. By the way, the service is still responsible for investigating financial crimes committed in the United States. Not just the president. Over the years, you've likely come to associate the Secret Service with the President of the United States. After all, in any photos of live coverage of the President, you can almost always pick out a bunch of black-suited, sunglass-wearing agents calmly walking and scanning the area. If the President is in the crowd, there is always a group of serious and intimidating-looking agents standing around. Driving down the road in a parade, expect to see a group of agents right alongside the limo. However, while the President is the priority in any protection, the Secret Service also provides its services to protect others. Of course, the first family is given protection, as are former presidents, unless they decline the service. Presidential candidates are also afforded full Secret Service protection for up to 120 days before any major election. But you likely all knew this. What you may not have known is that the service will also protect the children of former presidents up until the age of 16. Visiting foreign heads of state and their families are placed under the protection of the men in black as well. Finally, anyone the president names in an executive order is eligible for full protection. Mount Weather. Once a year, the president goes before the assembled members of Congress, the Supreme Court, and the Cabinet to give the State of the Union address. This is usually a pretty uninteresting speech filled with all the cliché and self-congratulatory remarks you'd expect a politician to come up with. However, put all the pomp and ceremony aside, and there's likely a question some have had about the entire event. What would happen if a terrorist attack somehow occurred right when all those VIPs were collected in one area? The entire U.S. government would be wiped out in an instant. Or would it? The Secret Service has you covered there. You see, one member of the cabinet is always absent from the State of the Union address for just this reason. Hidden away at Mount Weather in Virginia, the Secret Service protects this single individual because there is always the slight chance they could be the last remaining member of the government. Mount Weather itself isn't a secret, but post 9/11, renovations reportedly added new underground facilities. No doubt, in this protective lair, the Secret Service keeps close guard of the single official selected to sit out the grand gathering in Washington, D.C. H Street. If you've ever driven around Washington, D.C., then you know there are a lot of really interesting buildings to take in. You've got everything from the White House and Capitol Building to the Smithsonian and Supreme Court. And don't even get us started on all of the monuments. However, don't forget to see a sign marking the Secret Service building. They don't want to attract attention to themselves. In fact, if you've ever driven through the city on H Street, you probably drove past it without even realizing it. That's because the Secret Service headquarters is a rather plain-looking 9-story building with no signage around it. In fact, if you really pay attention, you'll notice that unlike its neighbors, this unmarked building is surrounded by concrete barriers meant to stop any vehicles from driving into it. Furthermore, there are no garbage cans outside. It is believed that this is so there are no hiding spots for anyone to place a bomb. So what's inside? We can imagine hundreds of armed agents, a lot of secrets we aren't allowed to know, and a cafeteria accessible only by Secret Service members. Medical readiness. While there are thousands of Secret Service personnel, the most high-profile group belong to the Presidential Protection Division, or PPD. This group of agents are not only charged with protecting the life of the president and the first family, but being totally ready for a medical emergency should it arise. Experts have dubbed this 10-minute medicine because the president is always within 10 minutes of hospital or trauma centers, which could treat them in times of emergency. In the event of an assassination attempt, the Secret Service would be responsible for assessing the president, determining his or her wounds, and doing everything possible to help them until they arrived at a medical facility. For this, agents have bags of the president's blood, which they can administer if a transfusion is needed. At the nearby hospital, there is always an agent who is pre-positioned and knows the emergency room staff. This system was shown to work when agents took charge after the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. At the time, Reagan only complained of a slight pain in his ribs. An observant agent noticed blood in the president's mouth and redirected the limousine to the nearest hospital, where the president underwent life-saving surgery. Alright, time for our Secret Service quiz. Can you tell us how many Secret Service members have lost their lives while protecting the president? Think about it while we show you 5 more secrets about this organization. 4-legged agents. When you picture a Secret Service agent, what do you imagine? It's likely a man or woman in a black suit, wearing sunglasses and striking a rather serious-looking pose. Well, that's correct, but it misses out on a whole group of Secret Service members that often don't get noticed. They are furry, have 4 legs, can run really fast, and also have incredible senses of smell and hearing. Yes, we're talking about dogs. These agents came about in 1975 when dogs were integrated into the Secret Service. Those animals that get selected undergo 17 weeks of training and lots of additional on-the-job training to ensure that they can meet any challenge. Whether you're walking through the White House or just strolling by on the sidewalks outside, odds are one of these canine agents is monitoring you. That friendly-looking pooch being walked outside the White House perimeter is likely sniffing for bombs or even gunpowder residue. Then there are the unseen dogs that can and have tackled and bitten intruders who are foolish enough to try and jump the fence and enter the White House illegally. Always there. If you're the President of the United States, then you can expect the Secret Service to always be right with you. Sometimes, quite literally. Now, we often see the President out in public, so we know agents are never more than a step or 2 away at any given time. On the lawn of the White House, or walking beside the presidential limousine on Inauguration Day, the Secret Service stays close. But what about when the president is out of the public eye? While you might think they can let their guard down just a little bit in more private environments, the Secret Service agents are 100% on all the time. This means that inside the White House, out visiting friends, or going about daily business we take for granted, the president always has an agent close by. In fact, even using the bathroom means an agent is right there. Doctor-patient confidentiality? Please. When the president has a doctor's appointment, there is always an agent right there with them, no matter what the case. If you don't believe us, then just ask the agents who stood by in the room while Ronald Reagan underwent annual rectal exams and colonoscopies. We kid you not. Food experts. The White House has its own large kitchen, complete with several chefs who are trained to meet the personal needs of the president as well as the requirements of something as large as a state dinner. Obviously, any kitchen staff allowed to work in the White House are carefully screened because of both their physical proximity to the First Family and their control over the food supply. However, even with all the security checkpoints and pre-screening that occurs, the kitchen and its staff remain under very close watch by the Secret Service. How close? Reportedly, agents are present in the kitchen to keep an eye on food preparation. It's not that they don't trust the chefs, but they just can't trust anyone, to be honest. They are there to make sure no one slips poisons or anything dangerous into the First Family's meals. But what if the president wants to order pizza from a local restaurant? That's not a problem. Agents will order the pizza to a completely separate address so no one knows it's for the president. From there, the pie will make its way to the White House. We're just not sure if the president tips the agents that deliver it. Forensic experts. In the era where everything is online, Edward Snowden showed us that the government can actually see a lot more than we know. This includes anyone who doesn't like the president and voices their opinion. Whether chat rooms, forums, or email, the Secret Service tracks any threats or statements which could be suspicious when it comes to the safety of the president. So if you've had a rant online and just happened to mention that you wish the president ill, there's a very good chance the agency has you on record. Oh, and don't think going old school will help you either. A handwritten note filled with threats written to the White House is taken as a very serious threat. Just because it's not electronic doesn't mean the Secret Service won't track you down eventually. You see, in addition to analyzing fingerprints and handwriting, agents will also run the ink through their ink database. We aren't joking. They have access to around 9,500 ink samples and can narrow it down to know what brand of ink you use and the general area where it was purchased. More than meets the eye. Secret Service agents may look like they're wearing standard gear, but there's a lot more than you might know. Sure, they carry handguns and have the ability to pretty much take down any regular troublemaker. For cases that might require more, however, they have it covered. For instance, some members are said to wear special bullet and stab-resistant suits and even underwear. In addition to standard sidearms, agents are also known to be packing respirators, night vision goggles, and submachine guns. Allegedly, when the president is outside of the White House, there is always one agent nearby with a special mask. In the event of a suspected chemical or biological incident, this agent is tasked with getting the mask onto the president's head. Although we're not sure what happens to the agent after that. While all the Secret Service are known for wearing sunglasses, it has also been revealed that some of those shades are equipped with cameras which beam the images back to headquarters. There, other agents can examine the footage and likely run it through facial recognition software to identify any potential threats. So, do you know how many Secret Service members have lost their lives protecting the president throughout history? The answer? 1. In 1950, 2 Puerto Rican nationalists tried to storm the house President Truman was staying in while the White House was renovated. Mortally wounded, the agent managed to shoot one attacker and foil the assassination plot. That's the end of our video for today, folks. As always, if you're interested in...
President Trump found out what the Veterans Administration did and fired over 800 government employees. President Trump demonstrated his strong gratitude and appreciation for our Army ever since taking office. This is a significant change from the actual arrogant commander-in-chief our veterans became acquainted with underneath President or former President Barack Obama.
Yeah, dude, I thought somebody was fucking dying up there. It's like, boom! Everything's magnified down here in the basement.
Today, President Trump does something amazing for the women and men who paid the greatest sacrifice to protect our own freedoms. It happened at the White House overnight. He is helping our veterans while making Obama seem like an even greater jerk. The way Obama did it, well, all of us witnessed the actual revolting way President and former President Barack Obama handled our Army over the past 8 years. He decreased Marines to his private servants to protect him from the rain, quite often arrogantly declining to actually return the salute. Who is going to forget the pictures of Obama standing on top of the flag-draped coffins of our own heroes in 2012? This is because he humiliated his ass off regarding Benghazi, blaming the assault on a YouTube. A YouTube? But possibly Obama's greatest stab in our Army was encouraging our characters to fix the damage Veterans Administration. However, is it completely disregarding that the campaign commitment to hundreds of thousands of veterans would venture on to be forgotten, dying while waiting around to be handled at the Veterans Administration?
Donald Trump is the accidental genius. This is a man who, by all metrics, by all measurements, by all perspectives and considerations, is a genius. Maybe not because he knows he's a genius, maybe not because of something he intentionally did, but by virtue of his taking office, of his wanting to make America great again, of his wanting to transform, because whether it's great, well, that's for people to decide. But how he has systematically changed and beyond explication and uprooted, upended everything that anybody has ever considered to be normal is beyond, well, let's go through it. First, this is a man who decided one time, I'm going to be in television. Me. Not particularly talented.
renowned physicist Dr. Michio Kaku made a shocking confession on live TV when he admitted that HAARP is responsible for the recent spate of hurricanes. What's up, everybody? Truth Seeker here. In an interview aired by CBS, Dr. Kaku admitted that recent homemade hurricanes have been the result of government weather modification programs in which the skies were sprayed with nanoparticles and storms, then activated through the use of lasers. It says in an interview below, Michio discusses the history of weather modifications before CBS crew stopped him in his tracks. The High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HAARP, was created in the early 1990s as part of the Ionospheric Research Program jointly funded by the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. According to government officials, HAARP allows the military to modify and weaponize the weather by triggering earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes. I'll go ahead and play the video clip here for you.
You know, they were talking about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS's morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, they did not get into this discussion, though. But it is fascinating. I mean, lasers, really? To change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental. However, in the laboratory so far it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These seeds can also be created by laser beams. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning.
Well, this is fascinating to me in part because, too, I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been telling us alleged to, right. Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're bringing in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo-jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam. Obviously, the drought areas that need to have rain for crops. And they have because it only takes water vapor that's already in the air and condenses it. However, for floods, for agriculture, farmers, for people planning wedding parties, football games, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes, all of them could be subject to weather modification.
Incredibly interesting, Professor Michio Kaku. Thank you so much.
A non-group reports one detailed of academic papers and patents about altering the weather with electromagnetic energy and conductive particles in the stratosphere. Research published in the proceedings of the National Academy of Science said the laser beams can create plasma channels in air, causing ice to form, according to Professor Wolf Kasparian. Under the conditions of a typical storm cloud, in which ice and supercooled water coexist, no direct influence of the plasma channels on ice formation or precipitation processes could be detected. Under conditions typical for a thin cirrus ice cloud, however, the plasma channels induce a surprisingly strong effect of ice multiplication. Within a
like
few
it
minutes,
has like the
the laser
comments
action
down here.
led to a strong
There's extra
enhancement
ones
of the
on the
tunnel
side.
as part of
I was
the known
like, which one
density
is
in the
the top
chamber
here? I love
by
them.
up to a factor of 100.
I use it
Even
all the
though
time.
only a 10 to 9 fraction of the chamber volume was exposed to the plasma channel. The newly formed ice particles quickly reduced the water vapor pressure to ice saturation, thereby increasing the cloud optical thickness by up to 3 orders of magnitude. To really understand geoengineering, researchers have identified defense contractors Raytheon Bay Systems and corporations such as General Electric as being heavily involved with geoengineering. According to A. Kirby, Massachusetts has historically been a center of geoengineering research. But the anomalous hurricane
breaking news, Rico Kiku had just been found dead in what has been a really suicide. Apparently the guy that said this in one comment said that guy's been found dead in suicide. I don't know. Really?
Kind of funny
so
too.
crazy,
The video
Micho Kaku, that's it. I don't know. Just been found dead.
He is now saying that he's responsible for what's going on right now. Pretty interesting though. This is actually,
he's like a massive
it's funny how it's not
he's kind of like
by talking about it. Now, it's I guess it's the way you word it.
Top scientist.
If you say cloud seeding, oh, you're not a conspiracy theorist anymore. That's actually false. That's what just really messes with that. I mean, all these people for years saying chemtrails don't exist, those are contrails, arguing with me. I mean, they would take that to the grave, you know. But what do you guys think about that? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. And thanks for watching, everybody.
This year marks the worst drought America's seen in decades, and it's showing no signs of letting up. Over half the country has been affected, with the drought bearing down on the mid and southwest, especially Nebraska, Kansas, the Dakotas, and parts of the south. Looking. Well, in one hard-hit area of Texas, some people have grown tired of waiting for Mother Nature to bring relief and decided to try and take matters into their own hands. Here's ABC TV.
Craig Funky is flying me to the edge of a violent thunderstorm. The former commercial pilot isn't some adrenaline junkie courting danger. He's a cloud seeder.
That's crazy they used Nikola Tesla's heart
This is Craig's job. Fire chemicals into the clouds in a
You hear that? That's his job.
He's literally a rainmaker.
That dark, thick cloud over there has one electric. That's part of the cloud that seeded. It actually looks heavy with rain.
Cloud seeding has been used around the world for decades, but it's now getting a closer look as farmers desperate for solutions endure their 4th month of record-shattering drought with no end in sight. It's actually the largest drought in half a century, responsible for rising food prices and record wildfires. It's even suspected to be a cause for the recent surge in cases of West Nile virus. So we came to South Texas to find out if cloud seeding can really maximize our most precious resource, or if it's just a romantic notion that doesn't hold water.
We can't manufacture cloud. That is just absolute.
Welcome to Sunnyview Dental, creating beautiful, healthy smiles 7 days a week. Our goal is to make dental care as comfortable
in the world. That's a big, big thing. Actually, especially in the United States, but through the Caribbean right now are these hurricanes, right? It's everywhere. So much fear. Thank God we have hurricanes, because if not, we couldn't be scared. We need more things to be scared of, right? So we need to play something on the TV for weeks and weeks to be scared of. And by the way, they actually do really bad, really tough things. I mean, Houston, we send our great energy to Houston. I think everybody does, right? And these hurricanes have been really, really devastating in some cases. But I think that some of the news channels, they run on fear. And I'm not sure they're upset about it. I would hate to say the news people want... I don't think the news people want bad things to happen. But it's just a huge focus. I think people need to be aware of the hurricane and be prepared and then get out. Right? But constant fear... You know, I think we need to be prepared, get out, and it is reality. If a hurricane is coming... We need to actually know that it's coming and get prepared, know what to do, and get out and figure out how we can fix things, right? And so I think it's just so much fear. It's like in red, and it's a little strange to me that the fear aspect is so emphasized. You know, I think the solution could also be, maybe we could focus on that a little bit more. That's all I'm saying. But here's something really interesting. I wanted to, our YouTube viewers right now, youtube.com/Believe Loves You. There's a channel, Secure Team 10, that we're looking at right now.
Secure Team 10. My favorite
And
channel.
I love this channel.
I love
It's a really cool channel.
My favorite
Tyler, you did
channel.
a great job.
Dude, Secure Team 10 is my favorite channel.
Amazing guest. We love Tyler.
Love Secure Team 10. Tyler's awesome, buddy. You'd love it.
So basically, this is Hurricane Harvey, the one in Houston. Of course, we have Irma coming now. So my question is, are these hurricanes being influenced by HAARP? And, you know, is somebody messing with the weather to get them to hit major metropolitan areas? I would hate to think that's true. But just take a look at this satellite imaging. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure people are debunking. People debunk everything. And I'm going to tell you why I'm asking this question in a second. Let's play this footage here. And you see the clouds spinning, and over Mexico, all of a sudden, just like thousands of clouds form randomly in the satellite image. So it's like a hurricane, and then an anomaly happens where just randomly tons of clouds are formed, just randomly. And I am 100% certain that if this became a story, that people would, there's somebody debunking it, and the scientists saying that it's BS and everything else. You know, global warming, I used to think scientists that debunked that were full of crap. And then I found out about the global climate facts. And I found out how scientists went back and stopped the curve, like it was...
Hey, check this out. I wanted to ask you, what do you think, is Trump going to do anything about the stratospheric aerosol injections?
Write that down. Because
I don't know.
are we talking about chemtrails down?
No, we're talking about stratospheric aerosol injections.
I can't get to any of the points that you won't let me, you know.
What? Do you think Trump wants to stop that?
I'm going to write it down.
Write what down?
The next question. I'll do it here.
That's the question.
That's the question. He just said it. I wanted to use last 5 before that.
Alex Jones is off the rails right now.
Bring it in.
I didn't get the joke. Why do I have to write it down?
Because you've been
listen, Alex. Will Trump do anything about that? That program to stop global warming?
Well, what do you think the program is, Eddie? What do you think the program is?
The director of the CIA is talking about it on YouTube. Look under John O'Brien.
I've seen John O'Brien. They talk about strategies. They talk about strategies.
Aerosol injections. It's going to cost $10 billion a year, and there's going to be some countries opposed to it because it's going to mess up the weather.
Are you telling me about atmospheric manipulation?
I'm talking about stratospheric aerosol SAI.
I've never heard of that.
It's super important when you can break it down to 3 letters.
Yeah,
that's what John O'Brien admitted last in June 2016 at the CFR.
I saw the video. Let me comment on it.
Can you play it, Jamie?
Let me comment.
John O'Brien.
I've been talking about this forever. I'm not bashing you, but you entertain my jokes about it, which I did, because all it was BS. There is an entire atmospheric terraforming geoengineering manipulation. They don't call it chemtrails. And of course, the CIA director admitted they had this huge program. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation owns the major patents on it from Westinghouse and others. They use these big antennas to manipulate the weather. They can, China is like causing huge rains and HAARP. Like HAARP, yes, technology. It's all declassified.
Do you think HAARP manipulates the weather?
They admit it does. I used to have the head of HAARP, General Bittenkate Partnon, all the time. But exactly. There's giant weather modification systems, and there's weather wars between different governments, and it's all declassified.
Let's explain to people that are listening what HARP is. What does it stand for? High altitude something?
Yeah, they've got a system that supposedly, well, you don't know what HARP really was under its classification.
What does it stand for? High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
Yes.
So the idea behind this was they wanted to do research on the aurora, and didn't they want to see if they could communicate using it and send radio waves and bounce off the ionosphere? Right. Yeah, that, and they also wanted to be able to send radio signals to places where they wouldn't reach, right?
So what does that have to do with stratospheric air?
Doesn't really go into the atmosphere.
Well, the speculation, Eddie.
I've interviewed the private head of it. Okay, front of the ARP secrets.
Okay. What's the ARP secrets?
How does HARP work with the chemtrails? What do they do?
Let me tell you.
What goes on?
Okay. Only a micronic amount, a small amount of what HARP does is in the atmosphere. It's bouncing off the borealis and then resonating back through in a deep Earth communication program to satellites and other things through the planet. So it's communicating satellites through the satellites down to the sun.
So here it goes. This is an actual definition. How HARP works. The facility's transmitters send radio waves upward. But hold on, let's just read it first. Waves upwards into the ionosphere between 100 and 350 kilometers of altitude. The resulting heating effect creates irregularities in the electron density there, which in turn allows communication signals as from satellites to be relayed off the ionosphere.
No, that's not what it really does. Then they can shoot the satellite frequency coded through the Earth to submarines.
Now, what is this website from?
Then the submarine puts up a buoy. You want the real stuff? I'll tell you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Nature magazine.
Let me explain something.
Okay, Nature.com.
I have the head of the HARP program on that. I got contacted about 10 years ago. They said the head of the HARP project really likes your work. He'd like to come on, interviews online, he'd like to come on and tell everybody. And about 30 minutes in, a colonel came on the line and said sorry during a break and cut the guy off.
Wow. Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, this really happened.
Cue spooky music.
Cue spooky music. We'll get back.
I believe you.
That's true.
I want to know the relationship between, like, what do the chemtrails have to do? Do you think Trump is going to look into the SIA project that the CIA has greenlit?
He is starting out with vaccines, as I believe he would do, investigating all the damage they cause.
Ultimately, that's good too. The vaccines get that shit together too, for sure. But what about the SAI programs that the CIA has greenlit? You think he's going to get into that?
Yeah, I think it's next level. Soon we won't even communicate with these microphones. They're going to like... You don't have to explain it all.
Eddie, you're so locked onto this.
I'm just like,
here's the problem with all this SIA shit. Most of what you see when you see those jets flying around, those clouds behind them, most of that is just a jet engine. Exactly. The jet
and everybody
engine
confuses that with the real program.
What's the real program?
Well, here's the thing. You're right, and so is Joe, because the world's complex. There are secret and quasi-secret and public programs to test manipulation of the weather and weather systems. The Arabs are doing it. The Chinese are doing it. The Russians are doing it.
People have been cloud seeding for 100 years now.
The Chinese are doing it.
That is weather manipulation.
But they're doing it for different purposes. Not to produce crops.
Okay, I had been living. Keep going. The head of the U.S. weather weapon program for 27 years on my show first, because I saw it was declassified. I saw that he was at the Panhandle of Texas. I called him running a major cloud seeding company with his son and got the 90-year-old to Austin. And then after that, he totally freaked out because the CIA came to his house. Do you want the interviews on YouTube? Do you want to know what he said?
Yes.
He was a World War II fighter pilot. And at the end of World War II, he flew the first planes into hurricanes, which are in the Atlantic.
That's pretty gangster.
And into typhoons that are even faster in the Pacific. And then he also led squadrons in Vietnam, flooding everything up to 10 feet of water out of clear blue skies within hours.
What a badass.
With their chemicals.
No, I really what kind of badass you have to be to do that?
Super badass.
Fly into a hurricane or a typhoon? Jesus
he's
Christ.
the first guy to do it.
Holy shit.
Anyways, he's super badass. I don't even know he's alive. He's been living at 90. He was still all there. I thought at 90 he could kick my ass. He was big Texan. I felt like the guy was tougher than me. Anyways, so we're sitting there. And he gives me all this data, and I can't believe it. He gives me all these classified photos and stuff because they just declassified the file. No one thought to call him a man from Lubbock. Right. So I call him, I get him on. They sent a bunch of people to our company and threatened him the next week after airing. And he let it out. He he said in 1967 he certified the Stanford Research Institute. He was able to control hurricanes, create hurricanes, and steer hurricanes. All that got budgeted, shut down, and then they got these arrays where they could use antennas. And out of that, in Westinghouse came the whole HARP program. So in the 60s, they could create, control, and steer.
Joe Rogan has to slow all his joints down and like go step by step. Whoa, you're in there. Stop. Talk with this and then this and then this. Explain this and explain this. And he does. Alex Jones explains everything.
For the new people who
dude, they're actually really good friends.
want to know what this is and why it's happening. Can you give us an introduction?
Again, the term geoengineering, aka chemtrails, the latest term for what we see out in the skies. But this is weather modification on a global scale. In fact, these programs are so large and so all-encompassing that all other weather modification programs that go on a smaller regional basis are virtually, they're negated by the scope and scale of the global geoengineering programs.
He makes fun of like a friend,
these programs involve a number of aspects. You have the saturation of the atmosphere with various chemical and metal particulates. And there appear to be various purposes and objectives with this saturation.
Dude, it's obviously,
in conjunction with this saturation, which ionizes the atmosphere, makes the atmosphere more conductive. We have the HARP facilities, high-frequency active auroral research program. These are ionosphere heaters. Many have heard of the HARP facilities. There's not just one or two or three. We believe there's at least 18 around the globe. Possibly there's 3 more being built in Antarctica right now. And once the atmosphere is saturated with these particulates, and you add the ionosphere heaters, the entire weather system globally is virtually being thwarted. There is no natural weather at this point, and we really don't know what sort of climate conditions we would have necessarily if these programs were brought to a halt. And they desperately need to be brought to a halt, because the saturation of the atmosphere is thwarting the hydrological cycle. It's totally disrupting the rain cycle. Again, we have the artificially nucleated snowstorms, which I just mentioned. You can't go from...
Yeah, Anthony Pablo.
Alien invasion? More eerie black rings floating in the sky. Mystery deepens. These are pictures of the United Kingdom. Former CIA agent breaks his silence and reveals the bombshell truth for Trump's team in the deep state. John Weber reports on Daily Dose politics. Former CIA spy just decided to break his silence and reveal the truth about President Trump. Robert Steele claims that President Trump's administration has been infiltrated and hijacked by the deep state. In a bombshell interview with Russia Today, this is what he claims. This is not the first time Steele has dropped a major truth bomb on live television. Back in March 2015, he told RT that every terrorist attack in the U.S. has been a false flag event. Waking Times Media reports it comes as no surprise that Steele once again posed to incredible truths in an interview with RT last week. 1. Hillary Clinton and the DNC stole 13 primaries from Bernie Sanders using electronic tampering. Quote, Hillary Clinton, it's on record, Stanford University has studied this and documented this, stole 13 primaries from Bernie Sanders using electronic ballot tampering. The Russians did not hack the election.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host, and joining me in this hour is Freeway Rick Ross. Now, you may have heard of him. You may have seen the movie Shoot the Messenger. Of course, Rick Ross features famously in that. He's recognized by many people as being a pawn in the CIA drug wars. Of course, if you look at the Iran Contra scandal, as we pointed out, it involves elements of both the war on terror, being supposedly helping Iran for money to go after other wars and other parts of the world, as well as the war on drugs. They're running both sides of this. They're running the war on terror. They're funding funding the terrorists. They're funding the drug organizations, the growing of the poppies in Afghanistan, and of course, the cocaine is coming from South and Central America. And with us today is Exhibit A. This is Freeway Rick Ross. Of course, we sell his book here at InfoWarsStore.com. It is a bestseller on Amazon, and you can read about this. It's called The Untold Autobiography of Freeway Rick Ross. That's what you can get that here at InfoWarsStore.com or at Amazon. It's a top seller. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we've seen a lot of back and forth in the last couple of weeks, of course, about Baltimore. We've seen Al Sharpton come in and say, well, you know, we need to federalize the police. It's like the police. What do you think of that?
I think that's crazy. We have enough policing already.
And of course, Al Sharpton was an FBI informant, but what he is saying is, essentially, I would think many of us believe that it is the federalization of the police and the way the federals have taught them to shoot first that is at the heart of this issue.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Talk to us about, you grew up in poor circumstances, of course, in L.A., right?
Absolutely, yes.
So talk to us about people's responses to this. I mean, what do you think about the looting that's going on there? Is that appropriate? If not, if that's not appropriate, what do we do to change it?
It's definitely not appropriate, but, you know, when you smash somebody up, you know, and you back them in a corner, they're going to come out with the only way that they know how, you know, and some of these people, they're not well educated, you know, our education system is in the black community and down teachers. I feel, I mean, you know, when I go out to these schools and I speak to a lot of these inner city kids, let me tell you this, they want to read my book. But do you know the schools won't buy it for them? Really? That's something as simple as a book that they could get for $10, $7.
Well, they got their own agenda. Okay.
They have
they've got an agenda. It's filled up, and they don't want you going outside of that agenda.
Exactly. They don't want the kids to get the information that the kids want. Oh, this is what you get. This is where you stay. It's almost like keeping you in your place. It's like another form of slavery all over again, where you got to stay in your place, and if you step out of your place, then you're on your own, and we're going to have our police force to deal with it.
And your story is something that people should hear, because just looking at your biography on Wikipedia, in terms of some of the dollars, how big this operation was in L.A. Well, $1980, they say that you had $900 million with a profit of nearly $300 million. In today's dollars, it'd be $2.5 billion gross with an $850 million profit. So, I mean, it sounds like you were living the life and the success, right, that everybody is looking for.
And you're talking about a kid that they said in school was a dummy. They had me feeling I wasn't going to make it in life. The system gave me low self-esteem because I wasn't functioning in the way that they felt that I should be functioning. And that made me lash out. That made me look for ways that I could be successful. It made me go and start hanging out with gangsters and people that would accept me. Because if the mainstream society don't accept me, you want to be accepted by somebody.
And so your story is something really that inner city kids ought to look at. Because here you offered what they would all dream of as the pinnacle of success, and yet it was a thousand bargain with the devil. The government. The government, you didn't know it at the time, but you had made a deal with the devil himself.
Absolutely.
And after a few years of this success, it came back to bite you with a life imprisonment. Okay, imprisonment.
I sentence without the possibility of parole.
Yeah. So I mean that is amazing. And then you turned your life around. What turned your life?
And that's not even the most amazing part of it. After I got the life sentence, I was totally illiterate. This dumb kid that couldn't succeed in school wind up being smarter in the courtroom than a Harvard graduate, a Yale graduate, and the top judge. Because once I taught myself to read and write in prison, I explained to them why they couldn't give me a life sentence and why them giving me a life sentence was illegal, was against their own books, and they didn't understand that.
It reminds me of the New Jersey weed man who had like a pound of marijuana, and he was a medical marijuana advocate. And they picked him up, and because of the quantity, they were going to put him in jail for trafficking. And he said, well, you know, I don't really think I'm going to get much defense from a regular lawyer. So he looked at it and he said, you know, most of the people don't agree with our laws on marijuana. They think they're draconian. So he goes, all I have to do is get one person out of 12. It's like 8%, right? And he knows that like 50 to 60% of the people, some cases more, disagreed with the laws at that time, about 2 years ago. So he defended himself, and he used jury nullification. And the first judge says, you can't tell them about the law, you know, and take that exactly in contempt. But he still got 7 people to vote for acquittal. They came out from the second time. That judge let him put up the law right out of New Jersey, okay, that showed that juries have the right to judge the facts of the case, not just the law, rather, and not just the facts. They'll tell you, you've got to just judge the facts. Don't consider whether you agree with the law or whatever. No, that's your duty, and your right as a jurist. So when they left that up, he got completely acquitted.
They want to take that away from us. That's why it's so important, you know, that you guys continue to do your work. Because we have to wake the people up and let the people know that you are in charge. Yeah. You know, Obama's not in charge. None of these politicians are really in charge unless we give them their power. We give them all the power that they have, and they're supposed to be doing exactly what we tell them to do, not the agenda that some big corporation who's lacing their pocketbooks determine what to do.
What would you tell the people in Baltimore, the young guys in Baltimore? Obviously they're frustrated. I'm frustrated. I mean, it's not just black people
I'm hoping that I'll be going there pretty soon to give a lecture to them. And just right off the top, I would tell them that violence is not the way. You can't beat these people with guns because they've taken away all the guns from the citizens. Yeah. They have the most powerful weapons in the world, and they have no problem with shooting you. Mm-hmm. And as we see, and it's going to be justified. You know, we see over and over again. Even myself, you know, I was shocked.
Would he have access to an unmasked name?
In some circumstances, sure. He's Director of National Intelligence, but I'm not talking about the particular.
Would Director Brennan have access to an unmasked U.S. citizen's name?
In some circumstances, yes.
Would National Security Advisor Susan Rice have access to an unmasked U.S. citizen's name?
I think yes, in general, and any other National Security Advisor would, I think, as a matter of their ordinary course of their business.
Would former White House advisor Ben Rhodes have access to an unmasked U.S. citizen's name?
I don't know the answer to that.
Would former Attorney General Loretta Lynch have access to an unmasked U.S. citizen's name?
In general, yes, as would any Attorney General.
So that would also include Acting AG Sally Yates?
Same answer.
Did you brief President Obama on... I'll just ask you. Did you brief President Obama on any calls involving Michael Flynn?
I'm not going to get into either that particular case, that matter, or any conversations I had with the president, so I can't answer that.
I spoke with Congressman Gowdy just before your time. Congressman Gowdy, you put a lot of focus on leaks today, the anonymous sourcing that led to news reports about General Michael Flynn being caught up in U.S. surveillance of the Russian ambassador. Can you clarify if you think that is as important, less important, or more important than government or just Russia's role in trying to influence the election?
Anderson, it's all important, which is why I asked Chairman Nunes to give me additional time at the end, and he did, and I went through all of the other non-leak related matters. I can't tell you which is more important, like I can't tell you which one of my kids I love more. It's all really important. I am a former criminal prosecutor, so it makes sense that I would be asked to pursue the potential criminality, but I went back and covered all of it with my second line of questioning.
At one point, you named several high-ranking former Obama administration officials. You also named the former president himself, raising the idea or the suggestion, perhaps, that it was one of them who were the source, or multiple people who were the source of General Flynn's communications, the leak of the General Flynn's communications with the Russian ambassador being revealed. Were you just floating that idea, or do you believe it was one of them? Because a lot of Democrats pointed to the fact it could have been somebody from the Trump White House who didn't want General Flynn being the national security advisor.
It could have been anyone, so if anyone thinks I was floating an idea, I didn't ask the question very artfully. Anderson, we'd already established 20 different people at the NSA were in the unmasking train. I had established previously with Director Comey in another setting the number at the FBI. I went through the CIA. I went through Main Justice, and then I started with Clapper. Went to Brennan, Sally Yates, who I actually have a friendship with. So anyone who thinks that I was accusing the President of the United States of committing a crime is either drinking on the job or wasn't listening to the question very well.
And just to put a button on this, you said a moment ago that you're not suggesting that President Obama committed a crime. That is what President Trump has accused him of in those early morning tweets he sent out, I think, 2 weeks ago. Does that make sense to you?
I used to accuse people of crimes for a living, and I know how serious that accusation is, and it needs to be backed up by probable cause and a grand jury indictment. The President of the United States, I don't think, can disseminate classified information because he or she is the final arbiter of what is classified. So I've got lots of policy differences with President Obama. I have never accused him of committing a crime and would never do so unless I was a prosecutor and had a formal charging document. And even then, I probably wouldn't do it publicly.
In general about leaks, there is obviously leaks have always gone on. I think Comey or the NSA director today talked about reading over the weekend about Washington complaining about leaks. Your Benghazi committee was accused of leaking your report to certain media outlets, or the Republicans on it was accused by the Democrats, and Democrats were accused of leaking other information. Is there a role for leaks? I mean, people point to Watergate and Deep Throat. Michael Flynn might still be the national security advisor today had that information not ultimately have leaked out.
Well, Anderson, there's a difference between leaks. That's a moral issue, whether or not you never heard me compliment WikiLeaks. You never heard me compliment Julian Assange. In fact, I can't believe Republicans who compliment either one of them or did last summer. That's a moral issue at some level. The leaking of classified information or the leaking of information that was acquired through another crime is a criminal matter. So it's not my job to judge folks who do a lot of work to rely on anonymous sources. I assume you have to for some things, but relying on anonymous sources and relying on classified information for which it is a felony to disseminate are two separate lanes of inquiry in my judgment.
Congressman Gowdy, I appreciate talking to you as always. Thank you. Yes, my Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy sits on the House Intelligence Committee. He became a household name, as you know, for his role in leading the 2-year House investigation of the Benghazi affair. I spoke with Congressman Gowdy late this afternoon. Congressman Gowdy, I know as of Monday you said you had not seen any evidence to support President Trump's wiretapping claim. I wonder, just in the last 2 days, has that changed at all?
No, sir. I've only interviewed one witness that I would consider to have firsthand knowledge, and that was last week in Director Comey, and I've not had access to any witnesses with firsthand knowledge or any documents that would inform or instruct that presidential tweet.
You've said if the Justice Department has any evidence that suggests that the previous administration's Justice Department acted inappropriately, that they are welcome to release that information. Why do you think the DOJ or the White House hasn't done that, shown any evidence to prove the claim?
It could be for two reasons. Number one, there is no evidence, or secondarily, it could be a judicial matter. Anderson, there's something called FISC, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, and it could be that it's under seal, and I have no way of knowing which it is, if it's either of those. But the executive branch is in possession of the affidavits and the warrants and the applications for warrants. So there are only two ways to lawfully intercept someone's oral communication, and the executive branch would have access to documents that support either of those two ways.
Right. I mean, just so I'm clear, if President Trump wanted that information, he could just pick up the phone and contact the Department of Justice and find out about what warrants were issued, couldn't he?
That's true in theory, although I don't know that we want presidents calling the Attorney General or the DAG, the Deputy Attorney General, and telling him or her what to do. But in theory, you are correct. The president is the head of the executive branch, and to the extent information is held within the executive branch, including classified information, the president has the power to both declassify it and to have it released, as long as it's not held by the judicial branch, which would be a court matter.
Right, he could declassify, just decide to declassify it and make it public.
He could, in theory. Of course, there could be people, I mean, you and I are speculating that it exists, so we'll continue with that speculation that it exists. It also could impact an ongoing investigation, so there may be a DOJ reason that they don't want to share it with Congress. They are, in fairness, they have been reluctant in the past to share information with Congress, which I get, particularly if there's an ongoing investigation. But in theory, the chief executive controls the executive branch. Therefore, if information existed, it could be released.
Do you believe anything actually exists? Do you think there is any evidence?
You know, Anderson, at this point in life, what I believe is less important to me than what the witnesses who have first-hand knowledge say, which is why I think it's really important that we talk to every witness and access every document. I am wrong more than I'm right when I guess, so I'm just going to let the witnesses speak.
Fair enough. I want to ask you about the House Intelligence Committee's investigation into Russia. There are obviously tons of unanswered questions on a lot of aspects of the investigation. Do you expect your committee to get the answers it needs in the initial hearing, which is scheduled to be held on March 20th?
We'll make significant headway if the witnesses show up. And keep in mind, Anderson, they're not under subpoena. They're being voluntarily asked to attend, and I expect Director Comey will come. I expect Admiral Rogers will come. Mr. Brennan and Mr. Clapper are available for shows on CNN and other places. I hope that they're available for the House Intel Committee. They certainly can unlock some of the questions we have, but by no means, even if they do a phenomenal job and are completely forthcoming, the inquiry doesn't end. They're not the line-level analysts. They're not the line-level prosecutors. They're not the FBI agents who initially got the Flynn transcript. So we're going to need to talk to all of the witnesses, not just the five that everybody knows their names.
And just lastly, I got to ask you about reports that you are being considered by the Trump administration for a federal judge appointment. Can you say if you've been approached by the president of the administration about a seat on a federal bench?
I have never met President Trump, nor have I had a conversation with him. I am blessed to have two really good friends who happen to be my U.S. senators, neither of whom have been mad enough at my state or the country to put me on the federal bench. So until Lindsey or Tim tells me to pack my bags, I'm happy to be where I am. Nobody's approached me about it.
All right, Congressman Rick Gowdy, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
People saying hello to me. Somebody else is I'll let you know it's gone. Diego Pena.
Actually, yeah, I don't sleep till Chrissy calls and
oh yeah.
finish a few beers here, and then I'll go start up my Grand Theft. I'm all excited about it. Steal some things and choppers and everything.
What?
Is one of the dumbest humans on planet Earth. Well, she also happens to be just an absolute dumbass. She thinks that people are spray painting swastikas, and then she wonders why people don't take her seriously about politics. It's probably because of that, you stupid idiot. Again, it's hard enough to fight anti-Semitism without people making up instances of anti-Semitism to fight. And I'm sorry, but you walking past a surveying mark on the sidewalk, that's not a sign of neo-Nazis out to get you, Sarah Silverman, you stupid, stupid, stupid human.
Get out! Yo, you're bathing! You're bathing!
You guys are more than welcome to join us. This campus obviously doesn't give half a shit about free speech.
Listen.
Demonstrators are a bunch of hacks. Pathetic crybaby wusses who only care about the melting snowflakes who didn't even have balls to show up, by the way. Got 35 people, 35 security people for little old me. No, not even any protesters, just for me because of my jujitsu skills and my massive 5'9", 165 Jewish frame. Okay, so, I want to start my cranberry and dip.
This cattle was trying to walk in my house today.
Really?
The cars on us chilling.
That's hilarious.
To say to me, what is
You
the
get
secret
rolled,
to
eh?
success?
I scared
First
away.
rule is trust yourself. But what is most important is that you have to dig deep down and ask yourselves, who do you want to be? Not what, but who. And I'm talking about not what your parents and teachers wanted to be, but you. I'm talking about figuring out for yourselves what makes you happy, no matter how crazy it may sound to the people. So rule number one is, of course, trust yourself no matter what anyone else thinks. And of course, rule number two is break the rules. We have so many rules in life about everything. I say break the rules, not the law, but break the rules.
Really? When I was in grade 12,
It is impossible to be a maverick or true recall if you're too well behaved and not want to break the rules. You have to think outside the box. That's what I believe after all. What is the point of you and this girl? All you want to do is be liked by everyone and
my grade 12
trouble.
media, that's I based
The only
my
way
whole credit on
that I ever got any place was by breaking
everything
some
about
of the rules.
steroids, fucking Mr. Universe, those fucking, the pump houses TV opened up.
The rule number 3,
fucking
don't
Gold's
be
Gym, I
afraid
think.
to
All
fail.
the Gold's Jams. Like,
Anything I've ever attempted, I was always willing to fail.
Like he's fucking Oscar.
You can't always win, but don't be afraid of making decisions. You can't be paralyzed by fear or failure,
He's the one
or
who
you will
made
never
Gold's
push
Gym.
yourself. You keep pushing because you believe in yourself and in your vision. And you know that it's the right thing to do. It's successful ground, so don't be afraid
You're the best
to fail.
like back then.
Which brings me to rule number 4, which is don't listen to the naysayers. I mean, how many times have you heard that you can't do this and you can't do that and it's never been done before? I love it when someone says that no one has ever done this before, because then when I do it, that means that I'm the first one that has done it. So pay no attention to the people that say it can't be done.
In high school, grade 9 or the drama, English.
I always listen to myself and said, yes, you can. And that brings me to rule number 5, which is the most important rule of all. Work your butt off. Now, I've always believed leaving no stone unturned. Muhammad Ali, one of my great heroes, had a great line in the 70s when he was asked, how many sit-ups do you do? He said, I don't count my sit-ups. I only start counting when it starts hurting. When I feel pain, that's when I start counting, because that's when it really counts. That's what makes you a champion. That's the way it is with everything. No pain, no gain. But let me tell you, it is important to have fun in life, of course. But when you're out there partying, horsing around, someone out there at the same time is working hard. Someone is getting smarter and someone is winning. Just remember that. And if you want to win, there's absolutely no way around hard work. None of my rules, by the way, of success will work unless you do. I've always figured out that there's 24 hours a day. You sleep 6 hours. You have 18 hours left. Now, I know there's some of you out there now and say, well, wait a minute, I sleep 8 hours or 9 hours. Well, then just sleep faster, I would recommend. Just remember, you can't climb the ladder of success in your hands. That takes me to rule number 6, which is a very important rule. It's about giving back. Whatever path that you take in your life, you must always find time to give something back. Something back to your community, give something back to your state or to your country. Let me tell you something, reaching out and helping people will bring you more satisfaction than anything else you've ever done. Remember those 6 rules. Trust yourself, break some rules, don't be afraid to fail, ignore the naysayers, work like hell, and give something back. Why do you want to work out? What is your goal? The most important thing is that you have a vision, that you have a goal. Because without that vision and without that goal, again, you're drifting around and you're never going to end up anywhere. People don't become successful just by accident. You know, I mean, maybe the guy that found gold in California and started the gold rush, but don't count on that. That's a one in a lifetime kind of a situation. So you got to really have a specific goal. And to me, to have that vision that I want to be Mr. Universe.
Yeah.
That I want to be the greatest bodybuilder of all time.
By any other human being.
That was a great vision, and that specifically to look like Reg Parker, to be up there on that stage, and to lift the trophy overhead, and to win the championship over and over and over again. So that was a great goal. You have to have a goal. Now, it doesn't have to be that specific goal, but it has to have some goal. This is why I always recommend to people, sit down, take your time, and start thinking about Why do you want to work out? What is your goal? That can be as crazy as it is. It could be, I want to impress girls. If that's your goal, so be it. But it motivates you. It could be that you're emulating a certain, bodybuilder or a certain football player, a certain boxer, whatever it is. Have those pictures put all over the wall, like I did when I was a kid. I put pictures of Rich Park and of Sonny Liston, of boxers and of Ali and of powerlifters and weightlifters all over my bedroom, wall. So that every day when I go to sleep, every day when I wake up, I look at those pictures and they motivate me. You need that motivation, and then therefore you have this kind of imprint in front of you all the time, and you know exactly what you're chasing. People always come up to me and says, why are you smiling? You're working out 5 hours a day. You're doing the same as the other guys. But the other guys have a sour face. They're pissed off that they have to do another rep or another set or something. I looked forward to another 1,000 reps of sit-ups. I looked forward to another 500 pounds of leg press or squat. I looked forward to doing more and more curls until my arms fall off. Why? Because I knew that every rep that I did, that every set that I did, and more weights that I lifted, I get one step closer to turning that vision into reality. So I was turned on by that. I was excited. I couldn't wait to get to the gym.
It's like the same kind of shit. His book is like all this shit, dude. You should read his book. And he gives you all the
when I weighed
techniques in his book,
245 pounds, and Bob Rafelson, the director of Stay Hungry, said to me that I'm interested in having you come in for reading and work on your acting and all this, because I'm interested in having you in a movie to star with Jeff Bridges and with Sally Fields. I was delighted about that, and I was excited, and I started pumping up more and more. And then he said, but I don't want you to weigh more than 210 pounds. You want me to be in a movie, but I'm weighing 245, 246. I say, I just won the Olympia, I say, which was 1974, and I was really at my biggest. And but he demanded that, and he says, look, it's very simple. On the day we start shooting, he says, I'm going to put you on a scale, and if you don't make the 210, you're out, because I have someone else in mind. And I worked on it. I started visualizing myself very clearly as a lean athlete, because that's the only way I could lose that weight and all of a sudden get interested in running more, because up until that point I ran like 3 miles after training or before training or whatever, but now all of a sudden it was 5 miles, 6 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles, and I even ran mini marathons in order to lose the weight, and I did everything with high reps, and I was watching my diet, what I eat and all those kind of things. And but the day before, I remember we were in Birmingham, Alabama. The day before I was at the YMCA with Bob Rafelson. He was swimming, and I was working out, and I was running. There was a track there, and I was running. He says, let's step on the scale. And I stepped on the scale, and I weighed 209. So it just shows to you what is possible if you visualize exactly what you want to look like.
Fucking crazy, dude.
And there was no room for any kind of like, well, I can't get my act together or anything like this, because there's only a certain amount of time. But the key thing again is have the clear vision. Have the specific goal of what you want to accomplish, because then you never go to the gym and you say, today I feel down a little bit, I don't know what it is all about, I don't know my life, I'm confused. No. I tell you that I was a perfect example of someone that was not confident.
Later on in the years, he juiced it in big man.
Oh yeah, he invented steroids.
When I was a kid, that was just like any other kid. I had hang-ups and problems and all this. But when I joined the weightlifting club and I won my first little trophy because they did the best clean and jerk, and then we went to another meet and they won another little trophy, I started feeling like somebody. But the bottom line is, everyone can use the same method, because I used it in politics, I used it in making money, I used it in everything that I've done in the movie business. When you have one little victory, little victories add up, and that is what gives you then ultimately confidence. Well, for me,
I like that movie. That's awesome movie.
to
That's
have
a
a
really
deadline.
good movie, actually.
So
cool father
when
figure
I,
in
for
that
instance,
movie. I really like that
had a competition, and let's say the competition was in the middle of September, and it was now beginning of summer, so there was no more time to screw around. So there was the time now to get going on a diet, to get going with the training, to not slack off at all, because there was a deadline there. The day of the competition, I had to be in the best shape possible. And I knew that if I come to the competition and I lose because I did not schedule my training the proper way, or I didn't have the right frame of mind, or I didn't give everything, literally worked my butt off, I would be just so angry. So I never wanted to be in that situation. So this is why it was very important to pick that time and to say, this is when I have to be in top shape, then to work towards that. But it's not just with the competition. I mean, it's the same in the movie business. I mean, to me, it was always a big